Imagine taking your classic car to a shady mechanic who laughs in your face, calls it junk, and slaps you with a huge bill for a tiny problem, only for you to fix it yourself in seconds because you know better. That's exactly what happened to rock legend Ozzy Osbourne. And trust me, the mechanic's jaw hit the floor when he realized who he was messing with. Stick around as I dive into this wild story of karma, car smarts, and why you should never judge a book by its cover. You know how it feels when your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, right? That sinking feeling in your gut as smoke billows from under the hood, and you're forced to limp into the nearest garage, hoping for an honest fix. Well, back in the late 1990s, that's precisely what happened to Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself, during a rare solo drive in his vintage British sports car. Ozzy wasn't always the rock star we know today. He grew up in Birmingham, England, working tough factory jobs before Black Sabbath skyrocketed him to fame. Those early days tuning horns and dealing with metal gave him a real edge when it came to cars, something most people don't know about the guy who bit the head off a bat on stage. So when his handcrafted V12 engine started sputtering, he coasted into a small-town garage run by a guy named Al, who thought he had an easy mark on his hands. Al took one look at the car and burst out laughing, calling it a rusty old import that belonged in a scrapyard, not on American roads. He didn't stop there. He had Ozzy dressed in his signature long black coat, messy hair, and sunglasses, figuring him for some clueless old-timer who wouldn't know a wrench from a hammer. "Pops, this fuel injection mess is going to cost you big time," Al sneered, already dreaming up ways to pad the bill with unnecessary parts and labor. But Ozzy just stood there quietly, hands trembling a bit from his Parkinson's that was starting to show, watching Al poke around under the hood like he owned the place. Al kept cracking jokes about how British cars were wired by drunks and how it'd be better off as a Chevy, all while stripping bolts and banging tools in frustration. The mechanic's arrogance was on full display, assuming Ozzy was just another rich fool who'd pay whatever without question. Little did Al know, Ozzy had been around engines long before he screamed into microphones for sold-out crowds. As Al sweated and cursed, claiming the fix would take days and hundreds of dollars, Ozzy spotted the real issue: a stuck starter solenoid from overheating, something a simple tap could sort out. But he held back, letting Al dig his own grave with every mocking word. Stories like this remind me of all the times we've been ripped off at auto shops, where techs upsell air filters or brake jobs you don't need. In the U.S., the average driver spends over $400 a year on repairs, and half of that might be avoidable if we knew what to watch for. Ozzy's tale is a classic example of how knowledge is power, especially when facing greedy mechanics who prey on the uninformed. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever walked out of a garage feeling like you got taken for a ride? Maybe it was a simple oil change that turned into a transmission flush pitch, or a battery replacement when all you needed was a clean terminal. Ozzy's calm demeanor in that moment teaches us to stay cool and observe, because rushing and angry rarely helps. Expanding on Ozzy's background, he was born John Michael Osbourne in 1948, one of 6 kids in a working-class family. His dad was a toolmaker, and young Ozzy dropped out of school at 15 to work in a slaughterhouse, then as a car horn tuner, jobs that built his hands-on skills. By the time he formed Black Sabbath in 1968, he'd already fixed more engines than most mechanics see in a year. Black Sabbath's early hits like Paranoid and Iron Man made Ozzy a household name, but his wild lifestyle, drugs, alcohol, and infamous antics often overshadowed his street smarts. Yet, in that garage, it was those factory roots that shone through, proving fame doesn't erase your origins. Al, meanwhile, represented every shady shop owner who's ever overcharged for spark plugs or alignments. As the story unfolds, Al quotes Ozzy an outrageous price, something like $500 for what should be a $50 fix, laughing about how Grandpa here probably can't even drive stick anymore. Ozzy nods along, asking polite questions that Al brushes off, too busy boasting about his expertise. It's moments like these that highlight the power imbalance in auto repairs, where customers often feel powerless. In America, with over 280 million vehicles on the road, scams are rampant. Think phantom leaks or unnecessary timing belt changes. Organizations like the Better Business Bureau report thousands of complaints yearly about overcharging, and Ozzy's encounter could have been one of them if he hadn't known better. His patience paid off, turning the tables in a way that left Al speechless. Diving deeper, let's talk about common mechanic scams targeting folks from 25 to 65, like unnecessary coolant flushes or claiming your shocks are shot when they're fine. For older adults, it's even worse. They might push senior discounts that aren't real savings. Ozzy, in his 50s at the time, fit that profile, but his rock star life kept him sharp. Ozzy's solo career after Sabbath, with albums like Blizzard of Oz, showed his resilience, much like how he handled AL's mockery. He didn't yell or storm out, he waited for the right moment, a lesson in emotional control that anyone dealing with service pros can use. Next time you're at Jiffy Lube, remember Ozzy and ask to see the old parts. The garage scene builds tension as Al struggles, his tools clanging louder with each failed attempt. Ozzy offers a hint. Maybe it's the solenoid, but Al snaps back. I got this, buddy. It's hilarious in hindsight, but frustrating in the moment, mirroring how many of us feel when experts ignore our input. To avoid such situations, always get a second opinion, especially for big repairs. Apps like RepairPal can estimate costs based on your zip code, helping you spot overcharges. Ozzy didn't have apps back then, but his factory know-how was his secret weapon, turning a potential ripoff into a triumph. As Chapter 1 wraps up, Ozzy's about to make his move, but first, let's reflect on why stories like this resonate. In a world of fast fixes and hidden fees, knowing your stuff, or at least pretending to, can save hundreds. Ozzy embodied that, bridging his blue-collar past with superstar status. With Al still fumbling under the hood, convinced the fix requires a full teardown, Ozzy steps forward quietly, picking up a hammer from the workbench. One precise tap on the starter solenoid, and boom, the engine roars to life like it just woke from a nap. Al's eyes bulge out, his greasy hands frozen in shock, as he realizes this grandpa just solved in seconds what he couldn't in hours. Ozzy turns to him with a grin, explaining how he learned that trick back in Birmingham factories, tuning car horns and fiddling with engines before rock roll called. Al stammers, asking how he knew, and that's when Ozzy hands over his credit card, revealing the name John Michael Osbourne, the real Ozzy, heavy metal icon and Black Sabbath frontman. The mechanic's face drains of color, muttering apologies for the mockery, the pop's jabs, and assuming Ozzy was a nobody. I didn't recognize you without the stage makeup, Al blurts, but Ozzy just shakes his head, disappointed more than angry. He lectures softly. Never judge a car or its owner by looks, because you miss the real story underneath. Paying the small fee way less than AL's inflated quote, Ozzy tells him to keep the change and buy a book on British engines. Then he slides into the driver's seat, revs the now purring V12, and drives off, leaving Al in a cloud of exhaust, forever changed. That moment of humility is what makes this tale legendary, a reminder that expertise shows in actions, not words. Now let's unpack the lesson for us everyday folks. In the US, where car ownership is a necessity, knowing basic fixes can save your wallet. For instance, a stuck solenoid is common in older cars. A tap or replacement costs under $100, not the $500 Al wanted. Ozzy's story encourages us to learn, maybe through YouTube tutorials or community colleges offering auto classes. At ages 25 to 65, many of us have families, commutes, and budgets to balance, so avoiding scams is key. Think about extended warranties, often overpriced, or dealers pushing synthetic oil when conventional works fine. Ozzy's calm reveal inspires confidence. Next time, question the quote politely and walk if it feels off. Ozzy's life post-reveal continued with ups and downs, reality TV with the Osbournes, battles with addiction, and a Parkinson's diagnosis in 2003. Yet, his garage triumph shows resilience, much like his music career spanning decades. Fans from Sabbath to solo hits appreciate that grit, and this anecdote adds to his lore. Common overcharges include tire rotations bundled with alignments you don't need, or AC recharges when it's just low Freon. For seniors over 65, shops might exploit trust, but Ozzy proves age is no barrier to smarts. Join forums like Reddit's r/mechanic advice for tips, or use AAA for trusted referrals. The story's karma element hits home. I'll learn not to mock, and we can too by treating service workers fairly while protecting ourselves. Ozzy drove away victorious, his car humming perfectly, a testament to hands-on knowledge in a digital age. Expanding on prevention, always request itemized bills and research symptoms online before visiting. Tools like OBD2 scanners under $50 on Amazon let you diagnose code yourself, just like Ozzy's intuitive fix. His factory days honed that skill, reminding us education beats ignorance every time. Ozzy's influence extends beyond music. He's a cultural icon who normalized talking about mental health and addiction. In this context, his mechanic win humanizes him, showing even stars face everyday hassles. For American audiences, it echoes our love of underdog stories, where the little guy, or rock god, prevails. As the dust settles in AL's garage, he probably shared the tale with buddies, vowing to respect every customer. We can apply that. Be kind but vigilant, ask questions, and know when to DIY. Ozzy's one-sentence changer, revealing his identity, but really, it was his knowledge that sealed it. In wrapping Chapter 2, reflect on how this boosts our empowerment. With rising repair costs averaging $500 per visit, stories like Ozzy's motivate learning. Whether you're 25 starting out or 65 enjoying retirement drives, stay informed. And who knows, you might pull an Ozzy someday.